L'enregistrement est en cours.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To all of my Muslim viewers, to all of my non-Muslim viewers, welcome to another history lesson on Shi'ism, persecution of Shi'ism. Now, a lot of people want to think that persecution of Shi'ism basically started around the Umayyad dynasty, right, with Muawiyah ibn Abu Sufyan, like the first caliph. But actually, the persecution of Shia began way earlier than that. And among the first martyrs of Shiism was actually a man by the name of Malik ibn Nuwaira. Him and the massacre of his tribe. So his tribe was massacred, and the women were taken captive. His wife, particularly, was raped by Khalid ibn Walid right after he was killed. And yes, forcibly married and then raped right after he was killed. What the reason for this murder was because Malik ibn Nuwaira, when he was very upset about how Saqifa had gone, how the Khalifa was given to Abu Bakr instead of Ali alayhi wasalam, he had basically said it should have gone to Ali. This is what the Prophet wanted. This is what Imam it says. It's supposed to go to Ali. So, because it didn't go to Ali, not only did he withdraw from Saqifa in protest, but he had also withheld the funds of Medina, the sadaqah that he had collected. So he was supposed to collect collect sadaqah and collect khums, all of that. He refused to issue it to Abu Bakr, Latnatullahi alayhi. So because he didn't do that, he an expedition was sent from Khalid ibn Walid, Latnatullahi alayhi. And Khalid ibn Walid is a particularly reprehensible individual, where there's even a hadith in Sunni literature about him massacring a tribe, even though they were Muslims and they had come to the religion. And all the Prophet did was invite them to Islam. So, because he had done things like this, even in Sunni ahadith, you have the Prophet saying, "I'm free from what Khalid ibn Walid has done," things like that. So when he came to this to Medina and saw Malik ibn Nuwaira and his tribe there, and they were refusing to give the taxes to Abu Bakr. He then kidnapped him, ordered his execution, and then massacred people of his tribe, took the women captive. Um, and interestingly enough, captives are not supposed to be halal for you unless they are either Muslims or Ahlul Kitab. So it's actually very strange that the pretext for attacking him was that he'd become an apostate, that he had left the religion and gone back into polytheism. And all of them had got into polytheism. And the women were supposed to be no longer halal based on this basis for any of the men there. But they were taken captive, taken prisoner, and used as slaves hypocritically by this so called Muslims. So, what has happened is that this is the actual beginning of it all. This is when Shia began to be persecuted for their Shiism. Who was Malik ibn Nuwaira refusing to give sadaqah to someone who's not deserving of it, and being massacred for that and being persecuted for that. And Khalid ibn Walid, Latnatullahi alayhi, then raping his wife after killing him. This is actually explains a lot of the rhetoric that comes out from Sunnis especially the ones that'll say Khalid ibn Walid radiallahu anhu, like may Allah be pleased with him, that sort of thing. It comes from it comes from this action, the Sunnah of Abu Bakr, ordering him to go and recollect the sadaqah and basically put down this Shia rebellion. It was a Shia rebellion, essentially. This was the first one. It's Malik ibn Nuwayra. It was the first Shia rebellion. And this is actually echoed a little bit by Syed Amar Naqshwani. So he's an expert in Islamic literature. He's read a lot. He studied a lot academically. He hasn't gone through the formal houses setting, but he has learned a lot of things. So just go through a little clip of what he had said about Malik ibn Nuwayra.
Malik bin Nuwayra, companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, comes into Medina, asks what's happened. They say that the leadership has gone to Abu Bakr. He said the rightful leader is Ali. What's the man from Banu Tamim doing leading? He spoke out. The moment he left, Khalid ibn Walid told Abu Bakr, that guy's going to be a danger for us. Leave him to me. And you all know what they did to him. Until today, the books talk. Khalid and Malik. Khalid and the execution of Malik. Why? Because Malik was an apostate. Apostate because of his loyalty to Ali ibn Abi Talib. He's an apostate. And because he rejects the Khalifa of his time, as the poet says, ride a camel and you're still called the mother of believers. But in that moment, you are not treacherous to the caliph of your time. But when Malik opens his mouth, then he's accused of being the king of treachery.
So yes, that's basically it. It basically highlights the hypocrisy of it all. And just in case there are any doubts, this is not even actually the after this massacre. There was another moment when Shia notably were killed, along with others who had problematic information. It was during the day of Yamama, and this was organized by Abu Bakr and Umar. Latin These two, when it came time uh, to compile their version of the Quran after seeing the problematic verses in the on the first page, which illuminated the scandals of the Muhajirun and the Ansar. Uh, what they did was during the Battle of Yamama, they would gather people that would recognize certain verses of the Quran. When they found that they were reciting problematic verses, they would kill them. So this is an example is something that even Talha La'natullahi alayhi mentions as something that had happened in order to cover up what was originally in the Quran. So, and I have seen Umar when he became the caliph sent someone to you that you should send it to the Quran, and you refused to do it. Um, Umar called the people. So two people bore witness to a verse of the Quran. He'd write it down, and what no more than one person bore witness to it, he threw it out and he did not get it written. And Umar said, and as I was listening, on the day of Yamama, men who would recite of the Quran, who had memorized it, were killed. And what they did not recite has been lost. And a gold came to the parchment and ate, which Umar had made them to write down. And what was in it had been lost in the book today written by this man. What do you say about it? So this is part of how they covered up a lot of the things that had gone wrong. Um, in fact, one of the for, one passage of the original version of the Quran actually had 70 names of munafiqs listed. 70 names listed. Of course, among those 70 names were definitely Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Latnatullahi alayhi, Aisha, Hafsa. And it was part of the reason why uh, these people were killed because they had memorized the verses. Among them were Ali's followers. So this is actually where it all began. Uh, Actually, this is where it began. The killing began with Abu Bakr and Umar. Rahmatullahi alayhi. And if you wondering why what had happened in Parachinar, those people are just following Abu Bakr's Sunnah. They're following Umar's Sunnah. They're following the Sunnah of the Umayyads, with which Uthman was a part of. And just to emphasize the point and make it very clear, here is um, very authentic supplication. So this is a supplication that not only Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi wasalam actually knew, but he actually taught it. He transmitted it, and he made sure that his followers would recite this um, dua. And here's what the dua says: In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. O Allah, bless Muhammad and his household. O Allah, curse the two idols of creation, their two magicians, their two rebellious people, their two accusers, and their two daughters. So who were their two daughters? Abu Bakr, Umar, Aisha, Hafs. Rebuke them, they have consumed their sustenance. So this is when they usurped the sadaqah, they usurped the khums, and then they appropriated it for themselves, and have denied your obligations, both have discarded your commands, have rejected your revelation, have disobeyed your prophet, have destroyed your religion, have distorted your book. So this is the tahrif. This is when they made criminal edits and changes to the Quran. So have made your laws ineffective, have declared your obligatory actions as incorrect, have disbelieved in your signs, have repressed your friends, have loved your enemies, have spread corruption among your people, have made your world occur losses. O Allah, send your curses on them and their helpers. As they have ruined the house of your prophet, have dug the door of his house, broken the roof, have brought down the walls, as you see, have made the skies, the ground, have destroyed its inhabitants, have killed their supporters, have put to death their children, have deserted his pulpit by his successors of knowledge. So the supporters, for example, Malik ibn Nuwaira and the members of his tribe. And of course, those on the day of Yamama who had memorized the Quran, have desired his prophethood, have ascribed a partner to their Lord, thus consider both of their sins to be great and make their abode in Sakar forever. And you know what is Sakar? It leaves nothing nor let anything remain. O Allah, send your chastisement on them to the extent of the sins of every disobedient and the covering of truth, and all the couplets where they have gone, and the believer whom they have harmed, and the disbeliever whom they have loved, and to the number of pious people whom they have troubled, and whom they have driven out of their cities, and helped the disbelievers and the Imam on whom they were cruel, and have changed the obligatory laws, have destroyed the practice of the Holy Prophet, and whatever evils they have concealed, the blood which they shed, have changed the goodness, and have altered the commands, have created disbelief, or the life for which they have cheated, the inheritance which they have plundered, and stopped the booties from them, and have consumed the prohibited wealth, and that khums which they considered is permitted for them, and that evil whose foundation were put, and that cruelty which they made common, that oppression which they spread, those promises which they dishonored, those covenant which they broke, those lawful which is termed as unlawful, and that lawful which is termed as lawful, no stomach which they have split open, and the palu which they broke, that hypocrisy which they have concealed in the hearts, and to the amount of treachery which they bore in their hearts, and that door which they broke open, and those gatherings which they dispersed, and those degraded whom they gave honor, and those honorable whom they insulted, and by the number of rights of which they have observed, and the order of Imam which they opposed. Bestow your wrath on them to the extent of the atrocities. O Allah, implicate your curses on them to the extent of alterations they have introduced in Quran and the cover-ups in their lives. Tempering with the divine wills, Lord deeds which were made redundant, and those promises which were disregarded, and those verdicts which were made void. Refusal of their allegiances, presentation of excuses, introduction of breach of trust, their acts of climbing on hills for their lives. This is when they ran away during the Battle of Uhud, when they ran away on the Battle of Hunain, these cowards, and when Abu Bakr fled in the Battle of Khaybar. And those fixed rules which they turned the other way around, and all that defects which they possess, bestow your curses on them. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali. So this is the truth. It all began with Abu Bakr and Umar. And there's actually an hadith which says that all of the killing, which particularly means of the Shia and of people in general, from the time that they usurped the Khalifa, and even from the time where they poisoned the Prophet and set the stage for all of that, from that very time, it is recited that all of those deaths are going to be on their necks on Qiyamah, and they're going to be held accountable for that, and they're going to be in the lowest pits of hell. There's another hadith which actually even says that they're even in a worse position. They're considered an even more pitiful existence than Shaitan, and that is why Shaitan pledged his allegiance to Abu Bakr. So this is the truth. It all begins there. If you are upset with the massacres of Parachinar, if you don't if you approve of them at all, if you don't accept them at all, yet you hypocritically say radiallahu anhum to Khalid ibn Walid, if you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be pleased with Abu Bakr, then it's just part of the nafaq of Sunnism. And you might be inadvertently getting along with that, but this is the truth. From the very beginning, Shia were being killed. And they were being killed precisely because of their Shiism, because of their allegiance to Ali alayhi salam, and their allegiance to the Imam that was appointed by Allah through the Prophet. That's the truth.